Welcome back everyone to another video on our falling object game. In this video we're going to be looking at retheming the falling object game. So let me show you what I've got here so far. So I've spent a little time kind of adding some things in and retheming. So right now when I play my game I have changed my sprite to a little spaceship. I've got some of these little glowing mines here, and you'll notice that if I get too close to a mine, it's going to detect me and blow up. So see there, it blew up even before it touched me. And I've added a few effects here to the game. Okay, so I've got the star field behind, and I've changed the color of my camera and all of that. So let me show you just kind of the basics of how you can do some of these things. We're not going to get on the specifics in this video. I just wanted to give an example of what we could do to this game to make it a little bit more interesting. Instead of just circles and boxes and capsules and such, we can actually do quite a bit with this game here. Okay, so a couple of things would be to change the color of your camera. So I just have changed the background color of my camera to black. To change your background of your camera, you can click on the camera, and right here where it says background, you've got a color bar, and if you slide this around you can change the background to any color that you want. Alright, so think about the setting of the game as you're retheming it. I'm doing mine in space, so doing black makes sense. If I was doing it underwater, maybe I would make my background a real kind of a light bluish color. You know, maybe even a little bluer than that. You know, however color you think the water would look, and then you can maybe have a submarine and you're shooting at some giant sharks or something that are swimming down the screen. Okay, if I was doing like the Old West shootout, maybe I would get kind of a sandy color, you know, something like that, and put some cactuses out here, or you know, have some of these objects be I don't know, charging cattle or something. Alright, so whatever the theme is, you can do a lot for it just by changing the background color of your camera. So that's how you do that. To swap your sprites out is very easy as well. For instance, if I go to my player, all these sprites have a sprite render which says what sprite we're using. So if I want to swap this sprite, all I have to do is click on all the sprites I have available and pick the one that I want. So if I want my player to be my box again, I can just select the sprite and it'll automatically change. Okay, so that is how you can swap out sprites. And again, on your falling object, since that's a prefab, make sure you go into your prefabs and you select your falling object prefab and change it there, because if you change it in the prefab, it'll change all these out in the scene already. So I'm using this red orb. If I want it to be a blue orb, I could click it and whoops, sorry. If I need to go back to my prefab, I clicked in the wrong spot. Okay, my falling object, if I want it to be this blue orb here, so I can just open these up, I can just drag and drop it right here, or I could click it from the list. And then you'll notice in my scene view here, all these guys have turned to the blue orb. Okay, and if I hit play, they should be blue coming down. Now let's see if it actually changed them. Yeah, they're really tiny because these sprites I'm using need to be resized. Okay, but you can swap out sprites just that easy. I'm going to go back to my red orb, and then they'll be back to the way they were just a second ago, where they're the red glowy orbs. Alright, so let me change my camera back to the black, because that looks weird having outer space be sand color. Alright, so changing the camera background color, swapping out your sprites to the sprites that work for you. By the way, these sprites that I'm using I got from the asset store. They're a free sprite pack, and let me find the name of those for you. Alright, so it's the Galaxia Sprite Pack number 1, and you can look for that in the asset store if you want to use those sprites in your project. I would encourage you to try to make your own sprites in any of the drawing programs. You can just make a sprite, make sure you make it as a PNG file so that it keeps transparency, and then you can experiment with your own custom sprites as well. Let's also take this opportunity to fix one error that's been popping up, and that is when the game is over and the player disappears from the screen, If there's any bullets still alive and they hit a falling object, we're getting an error that says that add score has no receiver. The reason we're getting that is when this game object of our player turns off, when we disable him, his script is also becoming disabled. So when the falling object sends the message to the player into its script, it's not finding an active add points function to run. So we're getting a message back to saying, hey, I sent this message, there was nothing there to respond back to it. So we can fix that pretty easily if we go into our falling object script. All we have to do is when we call, let's go down into our onTrigger enter 2D here. All right, when we do score points here, when we send message score points to the player, all we have to do is do a comma right here, and then we can say send message options don't require receiver. If I add this to the end of my score points call here, then when this message is sent to the player, it's telling it that it's okay if it doesn't get received by anything. When we were building the game before, we left this off because we did want to know if we weren't getting the message through so that we could fix the problem. But now that we know that it's working, we can add this in, and now when the game ends and the player has been disabled, then any further hits to an object by a bullet that's currently in the scene will send the message, but it won't care that it wasn't received. Okay, so that'll just fix that little error that you might have been seeing popping up at the end. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this project. If I get a chance to, I might make one more video where we can go in and look at ways to optimize this game to make it run a little bit more efficiently. So that might be something for the future. If you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.